Okay, so we're just going to start this here. We're joined by Christopher James, who we had on Liquid Launch a few years ago. We did a big special video, and it's one of our most popular videos, Christopher, as you know it. And before we get into the topic today, and maybe you can introduce it for us, but you've, as you said, grown exponentially since then. You've gotten the word out to a lot of people, and we've seen a lot of comments, people thanking you for bringing this information forward. So do you want to just maybe introduce what we're going to be talking about here for people, and then we're going to dive right in?
Sure. Well, I'd like to say hello to everybody. My name's Christopher James. I was on Hugh's show back in 2015, September 17th, I think was the date. And I would strongly ask all of you to go back and find that. As he said, it is one of the most popular, I believe I'm the most popular Canadian that you have in all your broadcasts that are up there. We're probably close to 70,000 views, I think, somewhere around there, 80,000, somewhere around there. And I've got another 30,000 on my own channel on that. So the reason I just simply want to bring that up quickly is I want you to go back. That's going to give people a foundation of what is actually going on. I've been involved in this research investigation work for the last 20 years. And my life took a turn back in 2001 with my, I guess you could say my life's work. It was an initiative I was launching worldwide within the music and entertainment industry. It was a $1.5 billion initiative. And it was my life's work. And just the long and the short of it is that through all my learning and getting to that point to be able to launch that, there was one area that was missing, and that was the financial world. And that's when it all began for me understanding how the creation of money starts. And it was like a punch to the gut, because then I saw this hidden hand, and it's very telling because that very same hand that is controlling the monetary system today, as we're going to discuss today in a very short and broad spectrum, the central bankers are behind all of this stuff that we're seeing going on in our world today. And it's very important that people shine a very bright light on them, which I'm not the only one, but thousands of people are trying to do this around the world, of who is actually controlling what is going on. As it states, when you go back to my original presentation with Hugh, it's proven that the central bankers bought up all the media in the early 1900s, and they control, you have to understand this, they control all the media, the newspaper, print, magazines, television, Hollywood. They control it all. Not conspiracy theories.
Yeah, and I just want to say, because they're in a position to create all the money they want out of thin air, meanwhile putting everybody else under the monetary pressure, right? Playing by a completely different rule set. They have all the money to buy up everything, right? And it just strikes me that with this kind of shutdown that we're being forced to do, a lot of those businesses are going to be out of business, and then they're going to sell all those assets for dirt cheap, and the people with all the money who can print it out of thin air are in a perfect position to buy up everything.
Yeah. As I said to people 5 years ago, Hugh, I wasn't Chicken Little coming forward at that time saying the sky is falling. You need to understand something. Why I'm here before you're here today, my website just launched. It's A Warrior Calls. I believe Hugh's going to put it up in the tagline there.
Well, we've got it up right now. People can see it. It's scrolling around the bottom.
That's great.
Yeah.
So that website there, please share that far and wide. Every single man and woman in any common law country, lawyers included, every man and woman needs to go to this site, and you need to see what was done to you when you were born in this world, because that is affecting everything that you're seeing that's going on around you here today. And I've laid it out very simply for people to get enormous knowledge quickly. That's not disinformation. What happened when my initiative, I guess you could say the curtain got pulled back in 2001, 2003, and I saw this hidden hand, I guess, that's controlling all this stuff, this enormous evil that exists in this world. I basically set my foot down to find out more of what was going on. And in the process, I got into commercial lending, and that led me to working with multiple levels of law enforcement, because I was dealing all of a sudden with all kinds of fraud. So you need to understand that the man that's in front of you here, as I've learned from all the great people in my life, is please do not take my word as gospel, but everything that I state here today, let me say first and foremost that what I claim I'm going to share with you is the most important truth in our world right now. And it will take down all of this disinformation, all of this corruption that is going all around us in this country, and our brothers and sisters to the south of us in England, and all the Commonwealth countries. It's so important that people understand this. And what a great opportunity while this so-called lockdown is going on for people to turn off the televisions, which is the nothing more than propaganda machines, and go to my site and start to delve into really understanding who you are, the power that we hold, and who is really controlling all of this in this world. Because we have a very serious problem right now going on, especially in Canada. Okay, we have this fear that's it's all been rolled out very slowly through the newspapers. And I copied Hugh on a communication I sent to the Spectator, the two editors, last week. And I basically told them flat out, have you ever heard of the Nuremberg trials? Because if you turn on the television, if you read the newspapers, they are pumping up this fear of the COVID thing like like we have ambulances racing all around our cities and people are dropping dead left and right. So you have to look at the data. So that's why I first and foremost want to say to everybody that please listen to what I am saying here. Everything in our world right now depends on this one truth. Once you learn what has gone on with you, then you're going to start to see who the players are involved and why and where this COVID came from. And before I get further into this, because I do not want to forget, there's some very important people that all of you right now can start to go and look who are doing incredible work like Hugh. If I can, just for a second, I want you to go check out Jason Goodman on YouTube. It's Crowdsource the Truth. He's done amazing work, okay, in drilling down with Charles Ortel and several, from CIA people to incredibly impeccable people with backgrounds exposing what is going on. Another man is George Webb. He has drilled right down. He has over 4,000 videos on YouTube. He's drilled right down on which no one in the mainstream media is asking today is, where did this virus come from? Right? People are being told it came from China. No, wait a second. You need to understand, this is not a virus that was just magically appeared, that's natural, that's occurred in our world. It is really just another realm of influenza, as many doctors will tell you. And George Webb has drilled down exactly on where this all came from. And it is incredible when you learn that back in September of last year, at Fort Detrick and Fort Myers, and we have a weapons bio lab here in Canada. It's in Winnipeg. These are the most dangerous labs in the world. What the hell are they doing creating these things in our countries? That's the first question that should be asked, because this virus didn't come out of nature, so to speak. This was a bioweapon that was created that got released. And George Webb has tracked down who released it, how it got released, and they've done it through these military Olympic Games. They had over 250,000 people come to Wuhan. This is from all the countries in the world back in October, September of 2019. And you will learn through his research, they've drilled right down on who were the people that were involved at Fort Myers and Fort Detrick surrounding this, and also the Winnipeg. And he talks about the RCMP and involved in all of this. And I would not do it justice. That's why I say you should go to his website, because another great man, his name is McDuff, and his name is John McLaughlin. But his website is on YouTube. It's McDuff Smash the CIA. Oh, Kennedy's Man to Smash the CIA. Put that in your subscribe folders and watch it. Another incredible man where I'm getting a lot of my detail from, his name is John E. Hoover. His real name is John Cullen, I believe. And I came through him through Jason Goodman's channel. This gentleman drilled down on the Vegas shootings. That is also on my website, exposing that Paddock didn't fire a single bullet at anybody. The ballistics are out there. People see the mainstream news isn't telling people this. Yeah. And that's why this is so important that you understand when you go to my site and you just look at the Vegas case. You are seeing webcam footage that the window wasn't broken when they breached the room. You're seeing the actual ballistic reports that not a single bullet matched from over the 51 people, I believe, that were murdered that day, matched any of the guns in Paddock's site. So we have a false narrative there, and then they have real-time footage showing you as this is going down, all synced together, you're seeing no gunfire coming from Paddock's room. Now, that was a massive event that happened. It was horrific. The mainstream media, are you telling me that they don't know that that was fake? Well, yeah. John Hoover shows people that. So, yeah.
I'm just hoping maybe you could send a list of those links that we can paste into the description.
Okay.
Put it up on YouTube later.
Okay.
That'd be awesome. I mean, so far we've talked about you've talked about a lot of different things. We're talking about the virus. We're talking about the banking sector. We're talking about false flag operations like perhaps the Vegas shooting. Now, how do these things all relate to one another?
Well, it's the same hand that's doing it. Remember, if I was thinking about this the other night. My role in all of this is to simplify things. Okay, I'm not the sharpest marble in the bowl, so to speak. Okay,
Yeah.
but I've spent 20 years drilling down on this, and I vetted everything. I have over 50,000 files now that are part of what I'm sharing with you that is vetted information and cross-referencing. So how all these things tie together, let me explain to you history in a unique way, very simply in under a minute, okay? A very long time ago, there was a group of people, and this all you always heard, all roads lead to Rome, okay? And that's where all this ultimately goes once you do the research. It goes to the Vatican, it goes to the monarch, the queen, and it goes to the central bankers. They are the entities that have set up this global monetary system, this global court system in the world. So what has actually happened here, if you were a group of people that wanted to control the world, and all throughout history, when you're manipulating, if you go back and you learn through history how the central banks came to become into power, etc., all these things that occurred, you learn that the Titanic was a false flag event. Yes. All right. The Titanic, there was 3 main families on there that were that weren't part of the central bankers, and they couldn't get past them in the United States to set up the Federal Reserve.
You know, I just want to say we had a guy, he's one of our that channel peeps. He wrote and he's a Shakespearean scholar too, but he wrote a radio play all about the Titanic, all about the families that were the prominent families that died in the Titanic disaster, and how they were all opponents of the Federal Reserve System. And so that was a planned operation. I'm handing it back to you now. Please carry on.
Yeah, no, and Hugh, you're absolutely right. So that's what I'm saying, that this evil, this corruption, okay, that has corrupted the consciousness of mind has been in place for a very long time. And they use these events. As you can see, what's going on right now with this COVID mess is that they are instilling fear in the people. Okay, people are very fearful. And they're very fearful. Why? Because you haven't been given the truth. Because you have not been given the knowledge that you deserved when you first came into this world, that should have been told to you from your parents and their parents. But guess what? The truth was kept from them. So going back to my analogy of the history, what has happened over history is that as technology was growing, you had newspapers, then it came the radio, then it came the television, and then the internet came on in 1995. So you have to look from a global perspective. If there's a global cabal, which is proven now, that is controlling and moving all these things through the central banks, whatever, if you want to get control of the world, you have to use what is at your fingertips, and you've got to maximize it along the way of history. So from 1995 to right now, the past 25 years, this was a pinnacle time in history. Why? Because it was a double-edged sword, okay? As the internet came on, everyone was now getting IP addresses to your computers, to your phones, to all this thing, which allowed the system, if you wanted to control and you were evil and put a lock on everybody, like it's your world and you run it, you now can track everybody no matter what they're doing just by their purchases or by your phone. Everybody simply understands that.
Yeah.
But that is a two-edged sword with that, because as that technology started to come online from 1995 till now, and we see all the speeds, look at this wonderful, wonderful connectivity that we have here today, you know, Hugh. I mean, you and I, we're broadcasting around the world if the world so chooses to log in. We did not have that technology up until, you know, a few years ago. So as these people were rolling out this technology to blanket the world, to give us all this technology, they are also setting up their processes to be able to track and monitor everything. But where it becomes a double-edged sword, as I said, is that has opened up the pipe now for the first time. That's why this is of biblical, historic proportions. We, the people, can actually communicate to each other outside of the mainstream media. We are actually speaking and hearing directly from professors, people that are independent from all walks of life, who have knowledge, who have drilled down on all these various things, be it the Titanic, as the gentleman that Hugh was speaking to before, or people that have drilled down on the monetary system or drilled down on vaccines, whatever it is. So in this very short window, they had to literally bring everybody online, so they could track, set up so they could track everybody. And then as they're getting close to the end game, they've got to do what? They've got to shut the internet down. And that's when you started hearing about all this fake news. That's why they have a special, you know, the BBC's got a special investigative arm now for going out there, and they're going after all the fake news and taking down, you know, all these from the site, which YouTube is doing as well, as you is probably well aware of.
Well, YouTube is very different now than it was a year ago. And you're setting up alternatives, you know, like Brighteon and there's some other ones, right? But they just don't have access to the audience. So they still, I mean, the big elite power money players still control the big media, because most people are still watching TV, getting their news about this pandemic from TV.
Yeah.
And the alternatives like YouTube are now being shut down in terms of absolute free speech.
Yeah. And I can, summarize things, and another aspect too. Hugh and I first met because this is a wide spectrum. I'm not a one-dimensional man, okay? I've got an enormous amount of information. I've got the solution here for everybody. This isn't an I love me scenario, as I said 5 years ago. But
great. I want to get to the solution because you mentioned biblical proportions, and I'm starting to think, like, are we ever going to come out of this lockdown, right? Or they're going to come and get all the so-called conspiracy theorists, right? And I've been trying to think about what a solution is, right? And so if you've got one, like, I'd love to hear it.
The solution is, again, this is not my opinion, this is actual fact. We have a problem. When I first met Hugh, I was coming out because I was addressing our court system, the common law. And people don't understand this. Even lawyers are not trained properly in law. So I'm going to give people some incredible knowledge right here, right now, okay? The word law stands for 3 jurisdictions. It stands for land, air, and water. Okay, common law is the law that is unwritten. This used to be plastered all over our government web pages and any of their attorney general sites. Where did the common law come from? And it is basically, the common law is based on the 10 commandments. It is the unwritten law. We all know the difference between right and wrong. We all know that when we're born in this world, we are born free. And when you go to my site, it drills down on these things with the Charter and Rights and Freedoms of Canada. Remember, Ontario is a service corporation, no different than a lawn service corporation you hire. Same with Canada. And I'm not being disrespectful, but people don't understand the difference between legal and lawful. So you say, where is a solution, Chris? Well, since I was last here, Hugh, and as you know, I don't run to the internet. I mean, I took 4 years to put this website up because why? I have a duty to make sure that this is right. I have a duty to all of you, my fellow men and women, that what I'm bringing forward is not my truth. It's all of our truth. And you've been lied to from birth, from exactly who you are and what is going on. And it's very simple to understand. I spent another, I think, what was it, an hour and a half or 3 hours we did of a show the first time. I can explain it to people very simply in 30 seconds. When we were born in a hospital, a corporation was created in our names without our consent. The Queen, the Vatican, Rome, they're the ones that claim that corporation that was created unbeknownst to you and your parents, and they claim that as their property, okay? That property of them, that is what all their codes, rules, and statutes apply to. When something is incorporated, this is why I went back to the law, stands for land, air, and water. Common law is on the land. That's the 10 commandments. You say, well, what are lawyers doing legal? That's admiralty law, maritime law. That's out on the sea. When anything is incorporated, immediately it falls under the jurisdiction where? Of the sea. So now you can start to understand the hidden hand. Well, wait a second, which I'm going towards here is that, as I said before, all of our public courthouses are compromised. They're corrupt. We are not being recognized as a man or woman when we enter that court. Why? Because it goes back to that birth certificate and the system that was set up a long time ago. Because immediately when something is incorporated, it gets dragged out to the jurisdiction of the sea, and that's where the lawyers have created all their rules, codes, and statutes, and rules of civil procedure. That's how their courts proceed. They're a private society, which I don't belong to. Those rules don't apply to me. That's why it's called a public courthouse and not a private courthouse. So now if you can take a step back and understand the big picture, then how is it that lawyers are representing all these people, our friends and family, when they go into these court systems? Now, again, lawyers deal in contract law. That's what it's supposed to be, okay, for the legal world. Administrative, it's admiralty, maritime law, it's contract law. That's what the legal world is. But that jurisdiction is out on the sea. And you're saying, well, wait a second, Chris, we're all walking around on the land here. How are they getting away with this in our public courthouses? Well, it's very simple. Remember what I just told you? A corporation was created in your name when you were born. Didn't you know that? Well, you did. You got the ID. All of us have got the evidence that we carry around with us. It's called the birth certificate. You did not create that birth certificate. Now go get it out and look at it. You're going to see your name is spelled in all capital letters. You're going to see after your last name, there's a comma. You write a comma, between your last name and your first and middle name? No. Then when you flip that over years ago, for people, I'm 53, if you flip it over, you're going to see that there's a red number on the back called a CUSIP number. Again, all of this stuff is addressed powerfully on my website and goes into more detail. But that is the evidence when you look that up. That is a CUSIP number is required for any company or corporation to be bought or sold on the stock exchange. The light better be going on right now. They're going, what? Okay, so this is what ultimately Rome, the Vatican, and the monarch did a long time ago as they started to move the system forward. As we started to evolve with, technology and manufacturing jobs in the 30s, they realized they needed to now implement a further system to enslave people. So they created this birth certificate, and that's what you get in the mail a couple of weeks or a month later after you're born. And that has nothing to do with you. That's evidence of identity theft, because there was an unlawful conversion that occurred unbeknownst to you by a service corporation called Ontario, and Canada's involved in it, in which they created a corporation, they placed a bond against it, and that is what they're using against you in all these courts. When you walk into the courts, that's why you look at all the filings. Just look at the very top of any legal filing. The names are always in capital letters. Why? Because you're dealing with corporations. That's called dog Latin. And this is why Latin got ripped out of our schools, because they don't want people to understand. Many years ago, people used to be able to understand when they looked at writing and the styling of it, what it actually represented. Okay, so when you see anything in all capital letters, that is not the English language, even though you read it as English, how we've all been trained. That is actually referring to a corporation. It's a fiction, it's a body. So where the solution in all of this is over the last 4 years, I've been fighting in the courts, helping people. And a very big case came through to me. I have multiple huge cases, but one case particularly came to me just back in August of 2019. Long story short, a farmer and his family had their property stolen from the service corporation. They've been farming for 30 years, never had a problem, never ran up, no bounce checks. Just a wonderful family. They take pride in everything they do. They grow peppers, tobacco, a bunch of different things. And they contacted me after their product got stolen as it was on way to being shipped out of the country. First time ever in the last 4 years that they've been part of the raw leaf tobacco program. And once I became involved, on top of all my other investigative work, because as I said, I've been dealing with the RCMP, I've been dealing with the OPP. I understand how the fraud is operating in this world. And immediately fraud was jumping out to me. It didn't make sense. So what ultimately got uncovered, I won't go into it here, it goes into it on my website, is I've uncovered massive fraud with this service corporation Ontario that goes right to Doug Downey, who's the man acting as Attorney General. It goes right to Rod Phillips, the man who's acting as Minister of Finance, and right up to Doug Ford. Now, you might think, if the media tries to come and attack me, they're going to be toast because I've got all the evidence to prove it. But everybody should also be aware of Brad Blair. Do you know who Brad Blair is, Hugh? Brad Blair is the past commissioner of the OPP. He was the one that's launched, if you might remember last year, a suit against Doug Ford for slander and all this other stuff. But you need to go to a live, I believe it's still online on YouTube. It was a live broadcast, and you've got the time now, people. Go back and listen to the interview that Brad Blair, this is the past commissioner of the OPP, this is the top guy, he held with his lawyer. And he told all of Ontario of massive corruption that's going on within the Ford government, within this service corporation called Ontario. And this is what I want people to understand is that, I said to you the difference between lawful and legal. Legal applies to corporations, anything that's incorporated. Lawful only applies to a man or a woman. And the trick word where they fool everyone is they use the word person. A person has been defined in their society in the legal world as also a corporation. But in law, you're either a man or woman when you enter that courthouse. And no man or woman has jurisdiction over you. You were either born free or you're not. And people don't realize those people wearing those black robes, they are your public servant. They don't have jurisdiction over you. You ask any of them. And when I confront them in court, they don't like that. And that's why when I go into court, they shut all the doors behind me and they don't let the public come in because they don't want the public to see the truth. Well, guess what? We finally got to a point, as I told Hugh 5 years ago, we have a crisis in consciousness and that this is building and that the central bankers have more ways than Sunday to come at you. They can do false flag events. They can crash the economy. They can start wars in other countries. They can do viruses. Right? They're the ones that pay and control. Remember, he who creates controls. And as the Rothschilds, when you understand who created the Federal Reserve, he said, I don't care who makes the rules of the laws in this world. He says, he who controls the money, the gold, makes the rules. And they've been carrying making these rules in all these countries for all these times. And that's the part when the light goes on with people, they realize we don't have a lawful government. We have a de jure government, an unlawful. That's what you want. You want a de jure government, a lawful government.
Okay. So, Christopher,
yeah,
we're not ending, but I just want to ask you, like, so many questions come up. But here we are in this situation. We, in a sense, somebody's already crashed the economy because keeping everybody home. So many businesses are, just unable. I don't know how they're going to sustain themselves through this lockdown, however it's going to last. So this is somebody's, either they've released a virus, or I don't know what the situation, whether it's real or whether it's not real. But my question is, you're offering a remedy here, but so often what we see in the courts, and especially if something like martial law comes down and they bring out the army, I mean, who's going to get to explain themselves in a court?
You're absolutely right. And this is the problem. And the solution is that public courthouse, because this is where I was heading to it, is that the common law is the most powerful law of this land. Okay. And when we, the people, I have the evidence showing now that we are being denied access to that public courthouse in the capacity of a man or a woman. And when the people understand that you're paying for these public courthouses, you're paying for these judges, you're paying for all these services, and these people aren't allowing you to access the court unless our public courthouse, unless you go through a private society, which is the bar. So I have all the evidence here, and there's thousands of people around the world. As I'm saying, where is the solution? If I had access right now, and that's why this case I was doing with this family that had their property all stolen, it got to the point, went up to the highest levels within the judiciary. Okay. And I outed them and I exposed all of them that the rules of civil procedure don't apply to we the people, and that we have a right to seat a jury of our peers. And that's how we hold people accountable. This is what Brad Blair was going to, the past Commissioner of Defense. So the solution to all of this is that those of us that have the knowledge, that have the proof, that have the evidence, it doesn't matter if it's in corruption fraud that's going on, or if it's in vaccines or viruses or climate change or whatever it is, that is the place where we the people are supposed to be able to go to air and correct any wrong and harm that's occurring. And when we're being blocked from that public courthouse, as Hugh's just pointed out, what's going to happen when the martial law comes in? Well, what we're seeing here right now today, Hugh, this is a coup d'etat of epic proportions. They are taking down every single country in the world without a single bullet being fired. The central bankers are using this virus. When you start to see what I wrote a few weeks ago to my group, and when you do go to my website, please sign up and subscribe, because I do feel that they are going to pull the channel down eventually. I will move all my videos now over to BitChute or some other medium, but it's important that we have at least a basic connection via email, that I can at least send out information to people.
I mean, Christopher, okay, so, and we've got the website scrolling across the bottom of the screen so people can go there at any time. I mean, if you're, you hear so many different theories, so many contradicting theories about the virus, about the pandemic, about the lockdown, about the economy. I mean, one of the things I heard is they're going to take the internet down, like today.
Well, this is why I'm saying is that, remember, we go back to my little history I was saying, is that as this window from 95 to now came, as this transference of technology and connectivity, it was a double-edged sword. So the end game for them is that they started to get exposed worldwide, because all the people like yourself and your shows have been exposing of all this criminality that's going on. So that's why these people have to shut down, and they try and minimize. So when you say to me you're getting conflicting things from here, well, here's some stuff that's not conflicting. This is from today. Okay. This is in Canada. SARS killed 44 people back in the day. And what did we do when we were all freaking out about SARS? We had a concert with 500,000 people, what I went to, north of Toronto, that attended. Okay. You have to remember that was an initial attempt by the system to see how people would react, and they're always advancing the goals. But today we have 90 people in Canada total that have died from COVID, what is nothing more than influenza. Doctors from all around the United States and world are coming forward saying, look, this is part of a natural influenza, but there's another twist to this. What I won't get into right now, which we can discuss on a COVID program, but do the numbers. There's 90 people in Canada that have died from this so-called pandemic. That's not a pandemic. 90 people. That works out to our population. Our population basically today is 37 million people, I believe it is. That works out to a percentage of 0.00024% with 90 people dead. Let's look at 7,708 cases have been confirmed in Canada. That's 0.00021% of the population. Now, those aren't opinions, Hugh. Those are hard numbers.
Right. But if you look at how they're predicting it's going to exponentially grow, and if you look at the stories coming out of Italy and other places, and they say it's so easily spread and all that kind of stuff, they want to flatten the curve in that, it makes sense. But
well, we can quickly address that, which you've exposed many times on your show. Climate change, Al Gore. Look at all this garbage and lies we were told about. Right now, we're supposed to be all underwater. Yes. Remember, they began that lie. So you have to understand, the mainstream media is lying to you. They lied to you about 9/11, you know the truth. That's why the Vegas thing is so important. Maybe that will kick the light on with people saying, wait a minute, why am I listening to these CBC and all these mainstream news networks when I know that they have never brought forth this truth? That is the key. Knowledge is part of the solution for this. And you must understand history. And you will get that quickly by looking at my original video I did with you, God bless you, Hugh, 5 years ago, and what's on my website. And that's the key to all of this. People don't have the knowledge. They've not been given the truth. And that's why we're here. That is the fight that we have right now before us, Hugh, is you're a light to this world right now. And I'm trying to be a light as well and bring this truth out into the forefront so that people can see it, they can digest it, they can pick it apart, and then they will see the truth. Like those were hard numbers I gave you there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just want to say that, it is the simplest thing, because you're talking about even setting up a communication network with email. But if they do take the internet down, we're going to have to figure out a way to communicate without the internet. Right?
When you say the internet, I will clarify what I meant by taking down the internet. There will still be a level of connectivity from email, but it's the YouTube that is the big problem for them. Because YouTube has been the platform, it is the foundation, the vehicle in which the entire world comes to get all their knowledge and to converse and to discuss and to share. That's why they have to cut it off, because they're going to blame it on all this disinformation that's coming out that's supposedly causing all this panic and stuff. And I would just want to say this, immediately when this virus news started to come out, the agenda that's out there, they have to keep moving the goal pegs now quickly. Pay attention. When you see Jason Goodman down in the United States there, he's gone to all the hospitals. He's showing you it's like a ghost town there. There's no pandemics. Okay? You need to understand that we are being played, and they're using fear through their control mechanism, the media. And I say this again, if this was a legit pandemic, we would have, if we had in Toronto, 20,000 people that have dropped dead in the last month, I would be standing shoulder to shoulder with Doug Ford and everyone else in this world to take out this pandemic. Pay attention, people. Those numbers aren't there.
Okay, so let's talk about the Indian for a second, because people might be asking, so why would they be doing all this, right? And I mean, I could answer that, but what's your answer to that?
The answer is it's got nothing to do about world dominance. And again, it goes back to, unfortunately, Hugh, people want to have everything handed to them on a silver platter. It boils down to history. Okay, you have to understand history, who these people are, the central bankers, and the information is out there, as Hugh is related to, on the internet now, and why they may wish to shut it down. So you need to drill down on why are these people doing this? It's about control. And what is at the very base of this, once you get into it, is there's an enormous amount of Satanism. Okay, there's an enormous amount of pedophilia that's going on. Okay, and I'm not sensationalizing anything. If I was today lucky enough for this country to be in a public courthouse right now where we were streaming live, because remember they did that with the climate change talks? They started to do that before Christmas. They had actually, when Doug Ford was appealing the federal service corporation called Canada, and that's one point I want to make out to everybody. I'm not an anarchist. I'm not a freeman on the land. I'm not a sovereign citizen. These are all the things they try and label people that are coming forth bringing the truth. Sovereign means you have dominion over something. And for those of you that are not knowledgeable on that fact, you were all of us, from the moment we were born, were given dominion over this earth from our creator. You are sovereign. You can't be a citizen, because a citizen is a legal construct. It's part of a corporate world. So you're only a man or a woman in law, and you never leave that square. You never leave it. It's very important. And that's why I know with all my heart that when people see what was done to them when they were born at birth, it's the same people, Hugh. The central bankers are involved in this. It's ultimately human trafficking on a massive scale that's been going on. They call it a baby trade, a baby slave trade. That's what's actually going on. We've all been bought and sold since we've been born. That's why they say there's no justice in this world, because unfortunately our biggest enemy is ourselves. It's our ignorance to what is going on.
Yeah, so, obviously the whole monetary system is the principal control mechanism for nations, for everyone, because we're all here. We're all chasing after the money to pay the rent, right? Meanwhile, we haven't been taught there's a whole other set of people, the bankers, as you say, who get to make money up out of thin air. And anybody who understands how the Federal Reserve works and all that kind of stuff already knows that, right? But yet, even if we know that, we're still chasing those dollars to pay the rent. So we haven't emancipated ourselves from that system.
And that's why it's so powerful right now, Hugh, because what you're doing is you start to lay out with the martial law. This is the modus operandi of what they have to keep going with now. So everybody understands. Listen to what I say now, and you come back. I wish you could see my letters from 3 weeks ago to people, because everything I've said is falling in line. Once they initiated this virus, okay, they have to keep this mechanism, this system, this false flag, if you want to call it, this fraud going over the people. So they have to constantly increase and encroach. So first they say the virus is coming out, it's getting worse and worse and worse. Then when the bodies don't start showing up, and I don't wish for millions of bodies to show up, but the numbers aren't there. 100,000 people die of the flu every year. 18,000 children die every single day from malnutrition. And yet this has been going on for years, and yet we don't have any pandemics. We don't shut everything down to save all these children that are dying from hunger. So what the bankers and them that are doing this to us all right now, corrupting our consciousness, in order to keep this forward, because they have control of everything, they've got to continue to take away and tromp on our rights. And watch what Trudeau does. Watch what Doug Ford does. They're doing the same template that's being carrying out in the UK, in America, everywhere. Oh, we've got a shortage of masks. When we don't start seeing any dead bodies coming, the central bankers know the people are going to start to lose it. And then that's where they're going to say, again, well, for your protection, because of these incredible circumstances we're under today, because of this pandemic, we have to have the military on the street, because it's always for your safety. Yeah. That's why you're sitting at home right now, because it's for your safety. Yeah.
And I really don't like the tone of some of our premiers and prime minister talking about how we have to, they're keeping it on the table. It seems every day they're announcing we're getting closer and closer to rolling out the army to keep people inside.
Yeah.
Right. So the thing is, so Christopher, are we going to be able to overcome this if this is all true? If they shut the internet down, because they can do all that stuff. How can we overcome this? Because once the martial law comes down, what is going to be the value of asserting that we're a man or a woman rather than a representative of our corporation that was created without our knowledge?
Well, what you could actually relate that to is, why did we bother going fighting in the Second World War, right?
How are we going to fight? How are we going to even communicate?
Well, unfortunately, and I do not wish this, but when you understand history, that the only way that when freedom has ever been secured, like in Second World, First World Wars, was by the barrel of a gun. And these people that have engineered this, they've been planning this for 50 or more years, what was being rolled out before us. So how they engage with the people is that they know when people are locked up for amount of time, they're not going to be able to cope with it. They're causing stress naturally. So what's going to happen when the bodies don't start adding up for the virus? Well, the people are going to be losing it. And look what they're doing already with toilet paper, right? Next is there's going to start to see riots in the street. They're going to turn people against everybody. Why? Everybody doesn't need to be a financial planner to understand you cannot shut businesses down like this. Your mom and pop businesses, corporations, for a few months or weeks like this, and not expect to have enormous repercussions that occur. And now we're all looking to a federal government, a service corporation called Canada, who can't even manage a payroll system called Phoenix. But these people have rolled out everything to take care of you. See, when you take those checks that they're going to give you, what you're entering into is a new world. It's already being broadcast in Australia. The new world order is here. And if you accept these checks from these people, they're accepting that as you contracting with them to turn this country into a socialist country.
Well, yeah, I think everybody dependent on the state as well. Because, I mean, as somebody on Facebook said, why are we depending on the people who created the problem in the first place to provide the solution, right?
That's right. And you had David Icke on your show there last year, and I give him full credit for his main staple, which he has proven time and time again, what we're seeing unfolding here today. Problem, reaction, solution, right? If the solution is that you want to enslave the entire world, get a one world. Oh, and here's the other thing. Of course, what you're going to start seeing also gets rolled out with this virus. Well, we can't have the virus destroying our economies ever again. So we can't have cash because cash is a physical way of transferring this virus. Holy frig. It's right in your face, people. And once they get a lock on it's a digital currency everywhere, there's no more cash. That's what they're pushing for in the world. That's the ultimate goal. They've got everybody. They know what you're buying, what you're doing, where you're going. They know everything. And they can shut you off from the system at a click of a switch. They can go into your bank account, take your money.
Yeah,
right?
It just seems what one of the points of the most leverage, if we are to emancipate ourselves from being oppressed by the system, is we need to create our own money system, our own that we manage, that is not managed by some other force that doesn't have our best interests.
And as you just said, Hugh, how are we whether it's martial law, whether it's I love Doug Force, by the way, with Mythos Canada. How are you supposed to establish a new government? How are you supposed to establish our court system? How are you supposed to establish all these things in such a short time if people don't first and foremost know who they are or understand what is really going on? And if I've got one message to leave with everybody here today is that our public courthouse is corrupt. And if I had access to it, this is the discussion that has to happen that is on my website exposing and showing what is going on. If we can get a few 100,000 people, there's 37 million of us in this country. Do you not think we could not collectively right now, everybody hearing this message, put my website out to everybody? And if everyone knows that there's a man in this country named Christopher James who is requiring access to bring this truth forward to the people openly, honorably, courageously, and truthfully into our public courthouse and let the world see this, then everyone is going to see who's doing what. There's where the solution is. We don't have time to form and create new banks or to form a new government, right? This is why they've engineered this. I mean, the timing of this is, I've done the best I could to get out here as quickly as I could, Hugh, but the timing of this is why they're ultimately doing it. The system is scared, you-know-what-less, because they realize the gig is up. Too many people around the world are knowing, but not enough of what is going on. And we have to do the best that we can to bring these truths to everybody and everyone to understand, wait a minute. We have people that require access right now to our public courthouse that can stop a lot of corruption that's going on in our country that also goes to this COVID problem. We, the people, require to know who created this virus, who released it, where and when. And George Webb's brought forth that truth. And those are the discussions that need to occur right now in our country.
All right. So please, after we finish here today, can you send me that list of links? Because I want to check some of that stuff out. But I mean, I've heard, they could bring out the army this week. They're talking about doing that kind of stuff. I mean, one of the rumors I'm hearing is that they're going to shut the internet down today. I've heard of so many things that didn't happen. I'm a little skeptical about that, but sometimes I think maybe this is the end game, the end plan right now, and we're not going to come out of it again. I don't want to think that way.
Neither do I, Hugh. And that's why we got to get this simple truth to everyone. The truth I want everyone to understand is if I get access to that public courthouse, if people can just stop for a second, if I was talking to everybody one-on-one, I'm saying to you, I have evidence of horrific corruption that's going on that is addressing everything that is being broadcast by the mainstream media here today. And if I'm willing to be locked up for the rest of my life, if what I'm saying is not true, do I not have that right to access that public courthouse and bring this truth powerfully with police and everyone else so that everybody can understand that this information and knowledge was brought forth under oath or affirmation and that I am fully liable of everything that I say? Why would I come forward and make these things? I'm not any disinfo agent. I have brought the truth forward always. And that's why people need to understand the one thing I could say to them, that is it. If you knew of one man in this country that had the truth, that's bringing forward to you that our public courthouse is corrupt and he's being blocked from access to it, which I have multiple cases now showing where they've thrown our claims out of the court because they don't apply, because they don't go by the rules of civil procedure of a legal society. And on my website, once you go to it, you will understand the difference between legal and lawful. You will understand where you've been lied to and what is actually going on in our public courthouses. And then you will realize, oh my God, if Christopher and other people like him who have the truth that is going on, if they were allowed access right now to that public courthouse and all the people could come and converge through the internet and watch it in real time, one day we can stop all of this. Pay attention to the numbers. A pandemic means thousands upon hundreds of thousands of people are dying in the streets. We don't have that.
Are you sure? Because I mean, the what we're hearing out of Italy, you know, I mean, can you address that for a second? Like,
sure. Some of the, again, because it's so huge, the information, right? The information coming out of Italy today that came out in the last few days is they are now showing that it's only 12% of all the people that died had coronavirus. Everybody else had some other serious ailment. And look at the Hamilton Spectator, which the letter that I copied you on, which I give you permission to put up on your website.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, I sent to the editors of the Hamilton Spectator because they had on the front page there last week, one death of coronavirus first recorded in Hamilton. Are you kidding me? It was an 80-year-old woman who had other health complications, and I don't wish anybody any ill, but when you understand influenza that's been around since the beginning of time, these are viruses that are just amongst us and have been here for years. They kill, unfortunately, thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people worldwide. But it's not a pandemic. It usually attacks the elderly. It attacks people that have a low immune system. And when they've crunched the numbers now that are coming out of Italy, they're starting to show you that only 12% of them actually died from this coronavirus. And then you drill down on, well, who are these people? 99% of them, the average age is 79.5.
Okay, but they're talking about how the medical facilities are being overwhelmed, and that's the big cry, flatten the curve.
Okay, so they're again
happening or no?
Yep, I just sent a clip to you, I believe, yesterday in my mail out. It's in Germany. Same thing's happening in New York that Jason Goodman does. What are these people doing? As I'm saying to everyone watching this now, get out of your homes, go for a beautiful walk, go walk by your hospitals and take a look. Go look at what's going on there. It's going to be a ghost town in there. So people are reporting when you say in the media, they're saying, de Blasio down in New York, he's bringing out, how the hell does New York have 1,200 people dead? Far worse than what Wuhan had. How is that occurring? How did this virus get into the United States? And again, what we've learned is that there's 5 strands that have been identified in the United States, and there's 4 strands that have been identified in the US. So we don't have time to go into all that. You will learn that from the people and links that I'm giving you from. You've got to go there because these people are doing incredible work. They're showing you who moved this virus and where it came from. And now, again, they're jumping on this bandwagon, and they have to continue to move these because the central bankers know the human nature, the people are they're ignorant, unfortunately, and they are going to allow fear to get into them like that. And it's working like a charm. So they're just waiting for people now to really start to lose it because they're being locked up at home because your businesses are being destroyed. You got mortgages coming. Remember, all of this was created by the Ontario government and the federal government. Remember that. They're the ones that created all this financial destruction. Never forget that. And now they're trying to come by with this new plan that they've created in order to support people and carry them through these difficult times. Okay? It's very sick at what is going on here. And I don't know, if Doug Ford is in on this or not, because again, the people at the top, they don't know all of this stuff that's going on. So we have a real problem in front of us, and only the truth being brought forward at the core levels initially is going to show people the way forward. And that public courthouse is the way for all of us. If I had access to it today and we could do a stream like we're doing now, Hugh, and the world could see the truth and the facts and the evidence that I'm bringing forward of what's gone on in our public courthouses, the monetary system, and with these viruses, I'll tell you, our country would wake up overnight and we would come together, and together we would rout out all this corruption. and we would do it with the police because they have been lied to too. These people are on the front lines now and they're in trouble. Okay. When you talk martial law, Hugh, who's going to be the ones that are facing all the irate people who are losing everything?
Yeah.
So all of us are either going to lose everything together or all of us are going to win. And we can do this peacefully. We can do this powerfully, but it has to be done with knowledge and it has to be done with courage, and start realizing. That's the part that upsets me. If I could end my thing on this, is that how quickly my fellow man in this country, when you've been told by people that operate service corporations, that's what all government is, to not go out, to stay at home, and you're buying all this hook, line, and sinker when we have been lied to. Those of us that millions in the world are awake to the mainstream media, and you're buying it all again. It's got to stop. And we've got to find a way to bridge the gap to have this conversation that you and I are having, Hugh. Yeah. Why are we not having a conversation like this? If I sent this information and truth, a few links to the CBC, they should have me on their show and do a national broadcast. And you bring in your top medical officers, you bring in all your people that are the top of the top within these service corporations, and I'll make mincemeat of them in under a minute. I'll expose them for the fraud that's going on. And that can't happen on the mainstream news media. So where does it have to happen? Our public courthouse. It's the only way it can happen.
Okay, so Christopher, so now we've got your website at the bottom of the screen, awarriorcalls.com. So we're urging everybody to go there, sign up.
And I'll send you the links for the other websites that are crucial to go to right now.
So we'll put this up on YouTube. It's probably going to get demonetized. Maybe our channel will get taken down.
Well, as you know, they do have an algorithm now that's monitoring AI, all the YouTube uploads, if it picks up the word virus, whatever.
Yeah, and I've got a video here that you sent me, the one about the German journalist going to an empty hospital. Yes. Is that the one you wanted to show?
That's fantastic for people to see, because it's important that you see what is happening around the world, what you're being told. Same in Germany. They've got these shortages of masks. They've got these shortages of ambulances and all this stuff. The Blasso was going off yesterday in New York about we've got a short of ambulances and stuff. And there's Jason Goodman. He's been going around downtown, which looks like a ghost town. This man has also exposed the Clinton Foundation, by the way, which Justin Trudeau is all tied to. But he's showing everybody, look at all these ambulances. They're all sitting idle on the street.
Yeah. Okay.
What is going on? So this is where people have got to wake up. We've got to wake up collectively and come together peacefully but powerfully.
And Jason, Christopher, just a quick question, because I've heard that within the last couple of days, something to do with Trump and the Federal Reserve that's essentially been absorbed into the Treasury, the U.S. Treasury. Oh. Have you heard about that stuff? Is that legit or what?
Well, none of it's legit. It's all theater. As you said earlier about Shakespeare, all the world is a stage. And this is all theater that you're seeing unfolding. You people don't realize you're seeing that Trump's talking about a $2 trillion fund for people, or well, it's actually a $6.2 trillion. And if people actually read that big book, which someone else has already done and brought forward, the Federal Reserve, remember, it's a private, what is the Federal Reserve? It's a handful of families. We, the people, don't know. These people are the ones that create money out of thin air. That's all you got to know. They're controlling everything right now. So they have written into this new whatever relief fund bailout that, you notice how quickly the bailouts rolled out all around the world to protect the people? Right? It's the criminals roping you in. They're snakeskin salesmen, Oh, we're going to take care of you. And then when everything implodes, the deaths don't show up, and all of a sudden there's civil unrest because of all this financial stuff they've done. Well, then they have to keep the military there for your protection. And what it reads right in there with the Trump document is that the Federal Reserve, these handful of families, they have $4 trillion that has been created and given to them that they can do as they wish with.
And they can buy up all the businesses that are closed, all their assets at pennies on the dollar.
Assets, asset-backed mortgages. This is what was the big collapse that happened in 2008. It came out in the paper, I think, 4 weeks ago, that the central banks, and this is what aggravates me, it doesn't aggravate me, it just infuriates me, is that our Bank of Canada, which is ours, is now been taken over in part of this cabal because of Pierre Trudeau in 74, as you'll learn on the site. But what you see is that these people, they have no empathy. Right? It's not about money to them. It's about power and control. Go look up the Georgia Guidestones, right? No one knows who put it there. It's all there.
It reminds me that sometimes these people have all the money in the world, and yet they're not, because they're human, they're not happy. So the only way they can try to achieve happiness is not through getting more money, because they've already got all the money in the world. The only way they could feel better is by making everybody else feel worse.
That's right. And they've had to do this because all this truth was finally percolating over the last 20 years coming out. That's why they've dropped the gauntlet now on the world. They've had to do this globally. They've had to do their big plan now because there is far too much. You've got Prince Philip's, right? I mean, involved in this pedophilia stuff that's going on. Andrew, pardon me. And then Charles, his best friend was Seville or whatever. And all of this stuff, again, they've got the evidence on what has been going on. And that's what I've always said, is that once you are hovering over the target, so to speak, that's when all these attacks come out forever. And that's why Trump has been attacked so much over the last year. You know, there's so much, you know, people don't realize the DNC servers, you know, were never hacked by Russia. They have the evidence from the NSA that someone put a USB stick right into that server. And you know, all these FBI reports saying that the CrowdStrike, that was the company that reviewed and investigated supposedly this server, a private server that Hillary Clinton had. Well, yeah. CrowdStrike was created by Clinton and her cronies.
Okay. So, Christopher,
a lot of stuff. I know.
It's been great. So, everybody, please go to the warriorcalls.com. Scrolling across the bottom of the screen. We're going to put this up on YouTube. Christopher, you're going to send me a list of links, which is going to be great.
Yep.
And we're going to get you back maybe tomorrow, maybe as often as we can, because this has been a great conversation. And we've got this video. Can you set this up for us? It's 46 minutes long. I don't know if we'll play the whole thing. We can put a link to it down below. But do you want to just set this video up for us about the German journalist going to a coronavirus emergency hospital? And then I'll play it.
This is a great man in Germany, and this is what all of us need to do, is go to our hospitals, film it, get it uploaded, share with your fellow man. It's not just the journalist that Hugh's referring to that's showing you this. Eventually, once you get into the clip, you're going to hear from doctors, dentists, and they're all telling you what is going on. This mask thing, the whole coronavirus, is transferred from your hand when you touch your face. But they're all telling you this is just another round of influenza that been happening for 1,000 years on this planet. And your body is more than capable, your immune system, it is the most powerful thing on this world. That's what I mean.
But if it is a created virus, a genetically...
Well, that's something, exactly. And that's the bioweapon side of it. And this is when, hopefully you'll have me back for another show, and we can drill down on 5G.
Yeah.
The 5G technology is tied into this.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Christopher, thanks. Send me that email, please, and I'll get this up as soon as possible. And I'll get back to you on when we can have you back on the show. So really appreciate this. It's been great to reconnect. So
thank you, Hugh, and God bless everyone.
Yeah, thanks. You too. And here's the video. And that's probably it for today here at thatchannel.com, but we'll be back tomorrow.
Ins Virchow-Klinikum geschickt und gesagt, hier würden alle Berliner Corona-Fälle zusammenkommen. Und das zwischen 8 und 16 Uhr. Das heißt, die meiste Zeit über ist gar nichts los. Schauen wir mal hier an. Also, die sind zwar da hinten in den Zelten, in den Zweien, die jetzt leer sind, aber was mich wundert, das ist doch nicht der Ausnahmezustand, der in den Medien beschrieben wird. Die Medien haben bereits am Wochenende über 1000 Corona-Infizierte für die Stadt Berlin gemeldet.